Alright, so if you were not aware, Chile had its vote yesterday on whether or not to approve a change to the Constitution, or a rewriting of the Chilean Constitution. And, well, they did it, guys. The socialists clearly have their fangs deeply embedded in the Chilean normie, and they voted to approve the change. So, um, that essentially means that the door is going to be thrown open for the communists to embed whatever positive rights or other nonsense they want to embed in the constitutional document. So, it's definitely not a good sign. Um, my my biggest concern or disappointment is that it's been a year of rioting. You know, actually yesterday was the 1 year anniversary, if I'm not mistaken, of when the Chilean riots kicked off. And after a full year of communists and socialists looting and burning and rioting and stealing, there's clearly not enough backlash from the rest of the population against this. I mean, clearly they were doing this to really, I mean, they were participating in terrorism to get the Chilean population to just bow their heads and accept this constitution change, and it happened. So the lack of backlash, the fact that it was, I believe the vote was 70-30 or so in favor. I've got a Venezuelan friend that posted pictures of the 2002 vote in Venezuela for over the same thing, whether or not to change the constitution. Numbers were about the same, so it's just a bad case of deja vu, and not really a good sign. So, I mean, how bad is this? Well, right now, all we know is they're going to change the Constitution. They haven't actually rewritten it yet. Well, I mean, I'm sure the left has a constitution already written that they want to ram through, but we'll see what actually gets rewritten and approved. On the one hand, it's just changing the wording of the Constitution, which, I mean, honestly, it doesn't really matter. Just like in Venezuela or Nicaragua, you've got their constitutions have the same thing, like guarantees to dignified housing and education and food and all this stuff that doesn't matter. It's just words. Like you can't actually manifest those things out of sheer willpower. So, whatever, they'll reword the Constitution. The bigger concern is that this means there is it's a sign of the political trend and what's probably to come. Like if the socialists were able to do this, then most likely there is momentum that's going to carry Chile in the direction of every other Latin American country down here. So now, then the thing is that'll take time for actual policy changes to be made. For you know, it's going to become a lot. Chile is probably going to become a lot more like its neighbors. It's just not going to be unique anymore. It's not going to be this unique situation where you had this Chilean miracle and you know, some relatively free market policies were implemented back in the 80s, and everyone's like, wow, why is Chile doing so much better than its neighbors? Like it's some kind of mystery. Well, that is, I mean, they've been slowly chipping away at that over time anyway. Like, it's been all socialist presidents and governments until this current one. This current government or president is the only conservative presidency they've had since Pinochet. So there has been an undermining and a ongoing chipping away at you know, economic freedom over time. But this is a sign where it's like this is a pivotal point here, where clearly if they're going to try to enshrine socialist positive rights into the Constitution, you know what's coming next, most likely. I mean, we'll have to see. And the thing is, that degradation of the economic system here, if it happens, will take time. Like it's going to be change over time. And the only real question is, will this end up as more of a Chilezuela or a Chilentina, right? Is this going to be so bad that we're talking about like Argentina zombie apocalypse, or I'm sorry, Venezuela zombie apocalypse type stuff, or would it just be like one of its other neighbors, like Argentina or something, where you just have a lot of inflation and just economically it's kind of just a Latin American borderline third world country. Um, we'll have to see, how it sort of where it ends up. My biggest concern is infrastructure, because I mean, I've been living in Chile for I think over 5 years now, and the biggest appeal is Chile has the best infrastructure in Latin America. Um, so if this is going where it looks like it's going, then over time, maybe within another 5 or 10 years, that infrastructure is going to degrade along with the economy itself. So, I mean, the biggest issue is like if you're down here or you're going to be down here or buy land down here or something like that, off-grid independence is just more of a priority. For example, at Fort Galt, like that's always been on the radar, like something that the team has been like, yeah, we should probably eventually get off grid. I just think now it's more of a priority and less of an option. It's not really just optional anymore. Like you got to get off grid infrastructure set up so that way you're not dependent on something that's most likely going to collapse to other Latin American levels. So you're just not going to enjoy the close to first world infrastructure that we've had in Chile for much longer. And honestly, so in the end, it's probably not a huge deal. Like unless we're going to Venezuela levels here, it's not that big of a deal for a foreigner living in that country. So it's not uncommon for gringos to come to a Latin American country, own land, or have a summer home or just vacation there, because stuff is cheaper, and as long as your money's coming, you earn your money outside of that particular Latin American country. They're destroying their currency and inflating and destroying their economy, but that just means your money goes further in that country. So that's something that's been going on for a long time. A lot of people have done that, so it's not necessarily a big deal for a foreigner living in a Latin American country. Dog, stop. So where was I? So yeah, and then so you'll want off-grid infrastructure for sure. Just have your own infrastructure, and with Starlink coming, maybe Elon Musk will give us all decent internet regardless of what happens. So as far as my long-term plans, I'm probably not gonna stick around or settle here. I'm thinking in the next few months, maybe early next year. I haven't actually traveled in a while, so I think I do want to do some more traveling. It's been years, honestly, since I've visited any other country than Chile and in the U.S. So I do eventually want to do a European trip anyway. So maybe I can make that happen next year. And then Chile is still a great place to visit. I think it always will still be a great place to visit, especially in the summertime. So yeah, that's kind of what's happening here. That's the where the political winds of change are moving, and we'll have to see how it exactly plays out. But those are my predictions. So actually, one more thing I wanted to splice in here is the purpose of the channel and like why I started this and what I'm doing as an expat. The whole reasoning behind it is not about leaving the United States. It's not about the United States government being bad and being able to find better governments or something like that abroad. It's not about the US specifically. It's about leaving your country of origin. That's the strategy. The strategy is to leave your country of origin. It doesn't matter what that country is, depending on your situation. So the thing is, we're all tax cows to our various governments, right? And sometimes things can start getting bad for you in your country of origin. So you leave. And the reason you leave is when you are living abroad, you are a guest of that country. And you are treated as more of a guest than a tax cow because they're not like, you don't belong to them. So the only money they get from you is through like tourism or investment or whatever else. So this is very applicable now for Chileans. Like regardless of what country you're in, sometimes something like this will happen, where you can see clearly, like, okay, the leftist mob is taking over. What do I want to do about it? In the U.S., like, you kind of have the prepper, the prepper culture, like bunkers and gold and guns and canned food. Or you have the other strategy, which is just go live somewhere else as a guest. And it is the act of leaving your country of origin that gives you a greater degree of personal and economic freedom. So, just a little reminder that that's what this channel and what this strategy is about. And it doesn't just apply to me as an American because I'm specifically living outside the US. It applies to anyone. So if you're in a place like Chile and you see this going on now, it's a great time for a Chilean to think about doing the same thing. And it applies to wherever you live if you're not from the States. It's an international strategy. It's not just for people in the West or Europe or the the United States. So just keep that in mind. That sometimes these things happen, and you need to think about being mobile and being international if the need arises, or even if it's not out of necessity. It's just a very good strategy for securing a life for yourself that is freer than it would otherwise be. So there you have it, and that's your update for now, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.